Should Hamas stay in power? It's actually
Are you done yet?
It's actually a critical question.
Are you done yet?
It's a critical question.
Are you done yet?
No, it's the question.
Are you done yet?
Should they stay in power?
Are you done yet?
This country says they're a terror group. Do you agree? And should they stay in power?
Listen, I do not approve, support, or welcome Hamas.
Are they a terror group?
Everybody knows what they are.
Are they a terror group?
Look, Piers,
can you say it?
Piers, can we have a discussion?
Can you say it?
Can we have a discussion?
Can you call them a terror group? Jeremy,
can we have a discussion?
Can you call them a terror group?
Is it possible to have a rational discussion
Are you
with
prepared to call Hamas a terror group?
Is it possible to have a rational discussion with you? Is it possible? Come on, answer that question.
You can't, can you?
You answer it.
No, it's my show. You answer my question.
Well,
are Hamas a terror group?
Listen, can I...
Are they a terror group?
Piers, can I speak?
Answer the question.
Can I speak?
Are they a terror group?
Hi everyone, not my usual studio. I'm here in Tampa. I'm going to be speaking at the University of Tampa's YAF chapter tomorrow about Israel, Hamas, the explosion of anti-Semitism we've seen in this country, in Europe, and across the world. But tonight I wanted to really dive into Piers Morgan's viral interview of Jeremy Corbyn and Len McCluskey. I'm sure you've all seen the one clip of Jeremy Corbyn for some reason refusing to call Hamas a terrorist organization. But I actually think the entire interview is worth watching. I'm going to dive into some other bits I think are really important because there's so many levels of hatred, ignorance, and just anti-Semitism that really cannot go unnoticed. So let's get started.
Well, welcome back. I'm joined now by the editors of the new anthology, Poetry for the Many, but they're rather unlikely anthologists, former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn and former UNITE General Secretary Len McCluskey. Well, welcome to both of you. I certainly wasn't expecting you to grace my studio, so thank you for coming in. Right, Jeremy, let me start with you. You were at this march on Saturday and you were speaking there. And as you know, it was a controversial march. From my point, I think a lot of people there are there for the right reasons. They're there because they genuinely believe that they want to have a ceasefire in Gaza and stop more people being killed. I understand that. But there are people there, and we've seen all the images all over social media, who are blatant anti-Semites and in some cases blatantly supporting Hamas. What do you feel about that?
Well, they weren't taking part in the march that was organised by PSC and Stop the War.
Well, they were there.
Well,
they've been. I've seen the images.
So Jeremy Corbyn seriously wants you to believe that the widespread anti-Semitism we've seen at all of these protests in the UK and across the world, people screaming, kill the Jews, gas the Jews, rape the Jews, fuck the Jews, that's just either not happening or it's a tiny proportion of what's going on. Now, that may be true, that may or may not be true. I think people are downplaying it on both sides or upplaying it. The problem, though, is that the entire movement is genocidal. Even the peaceful people are chanting things like intifada, resistance by any means necessary, and from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, which is a call to eradicate Israel.
The equivalent of the crowd of 10 Cup finals came to London on Saturday to march for peace in Gaza because they're appalled at what's happening there. And there were people there who wanted a ceasefire. There was
but what about the ones...
placards there calling for the release of...
I've already said that.
Calling for the release of
I've acknowledged
hostages.
that. I'm concerned about the ones who were chanting death to the Jews, the ones who were wearing Hamas regalia, the ones who were chanting...
They should have been arrested by the police. Every protest that's ever taken place in London, and I've been on many of them, always has a group of people there to cause trouble.
Again, more downplaying, but the entire movement is trying to cause trouble if they're calling for intifada, so-called resistance, and from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, which for the millionth time is a call for genocide.
They're normally dealt with by the police. Don't be asking Jeremy or the people who organised a perfectly legitimate
Why shouldn't
protest.
I ask someone who's helped organise it?
No, he didn't help organise it.
Well, you just said he did,
didn't he? He was the speaker.
All right, well, let me ask you this. So he's answered emphatically, should have been arrested.
Well,
do you agree?
If they're breaking the law and showing illegal signs, then obviously the police have to act.
Watch how deeply uncomfortable Jeremy Corbyn gets anytime he gets within a foot of actually criticising radical Islam or Hamas. Why is that?
Anybody
Wait,
who...
can I just be
let
clear?
me just ask you a simple question.
You seem to be
Hang on,
over-concerned with...
With anti-Semitism?
No, I did not.
I am.
Don't put words in my mouth. I didn't say that. What I was about to say was, you seem to be minimising the fact that 800,000 people, one of the very biggest demonstrations in our history... Well,
it was 300,000.
Jeremy Corbyn doing what the Gaza Health Ministry did, which is just making up numbers.
Okay. Well,
I'm minimising your description of the size of the crowd, but I'm not minimising, as I said,
that extends from Battersea to Marble Arch.
Yeah, but I said at the start, the majority of people there were for well-intentioned reasons, right? But
what do you want, Piers? Do you want us to say that anybody engaged in anti-Semitism we condemn out of hand? Because we've been doing that, both of us, all our lives.
Yeah, that's just bullshit. So Len McCluskey once told a Jewish banker to go count his gold, and don't get me started on Jeremy Corbyn. Just Google Jeremy Corbyn anti-Semitism. There was an explosion of anti-Semitism in the Labour Party under his watch because of the people he associated with and brought in. They're just lying.
Len, was it you were emphatic that you said they should all be arrested? Do you, Jeremy, think they should all be arrested?
If people have broken the law and the police feel there's a case for it, then of course they can do that, and they did do that in some cases. But I want you to understand the size of this demonstration, the peaceful nature of it, a very large number of Jewish people in the Jewish bloc also carrying placards calling for the release of hostages.
Notice that the only Jews that Jeremy Corbyn will ever bring up in any kind of positive fashion or at all are the ones that agree with him politically. Useful Jews.
This was a cry of all kinds of people, Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, Christian,
no question.
Everything,
no question.
Calling for an urgent ceasefire. I think the question you should be asking is, why hasn't our government listened to what ordinary people are saying?
And more of the silent majority bullshit. 300,000 people is not the majority of the country. But Jeremy Corbyn wants to present the pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel, pro-terror position as the majority position.
Because they don't agree that there should be a ceasefire. And there are, I think, very arguable points about that, which we're going to come to. The previous guest says you haven't condemned what Hamas did on October the 7th. Have you?
Of course I have, on every speech.
And do you unreservedly condemn it?
At every speech I've made, I've utterly condemned the killing of October the 7th. And it was a taking of innocent life. It was totally wrong under any circumstances.
Is this what he said?
You don't bring back the tragedy of those 1,400 deaths by killing 10,000 people in Gaza.
Okay, this is perhaps one of the most important parts of this entire interview. What Jeremy Corbyn is doing here is, frankly, evil. He's making this a simple math equation. He's ignoring every single part of important context, like, where were these civilians? What are either side doing to protect these civilians? Were these civilians being used as human shields or not? He doesn't care about any of those details. He reduces it to just a simple math equation. 1,400 on one side and 10,000 plus on the other. Now, setting aside the fact that 10,000 is just a number that the Gaza Health Ministry has given us, so we don't know how true it is. I'm sure thousands of Palestinians have been killed, and many of them children. But Hamas and other Palestinian groups routinely include their own victims in these lists. They include terrorists in these lists. They include people who have been killed by, Palestinian rockets falling short. They include bomb makers. They include people who have carried bombs. So these numbers just aren't reliable. Jeremy Corbyn doesn't care, though, because all he wants to do is present this, again, as a math equation. The bad side is the one that has the fewer deaths. So Israel only has 1,400 deaths, but Gaza has 10,000. Therefore, Israel is bad, Gaza is good. That's all he wants to push.
You have to have a process that leads to a ceasefire that hopefully...
How do you get... Do you think Hamas should stay in charge of the Palestinians in Gaza?
It's not for us to decide who's in charge.
What's your opinion?
Wait a minute.
I'll tell you how to get rid of Hamas dead easy.
Go on.
Get the Israeli government to comply with international law, withdraw from the occupied territories, dismantle illegal settlements, and build a viable Palestine, which is the United Nations position, it's the British government's position, it's the American position.
Why would that stop Hamas behaving like terrorists?
Well, because there would not be a need for Hamas.
Okay, this is just historical ignorance. In the year 2000, every single thing that he's saying was offered to the Palestinians, again, because it's been offered over and over and over again, and Yasser Arafat turned it down. He turned down the Gaza Strip, he turned down 97% of the West Bank, he turned down reparations, and instead, he chose terrorism. Hamas doesn't want a two-state solution. Most Palestinians don't want a two-state solution. So it's all very well saying, oh, we should just have a two-state solution. When one side wants to kill everyone else on the other side, a two-state solution is not on the table.
So what justifies what they did on October the 7th?
Nothing justifies it.
They're a bunch of medieval barbarians.
It was disgraceful.
Yeah, but these are the people who control Gaza. How can you argue for a two-state solution when one side openly doesn't want a two-state solution and will do everything they can to do one thing, and that's kill all Jews?
They're not going to listen to any reason.
It's interesting.
Their charter is a nihilistic view of Israel and getting rid of them.
It's interesting that you always have on the screens, like many other media, the war between Israel and Hamas. It's not a war between Israel and Hamas.
It is.
It's between Israel and the Palestinian people.
No, but it's not, though.
Okay, one, in this case, that's just not true. But two, what he's trying to do here is broaden and dilute the entire situation so you forget about, the 1,400 dead Jewish people or the raped women, the raped children, adults with their eyes gouged out, children with their limbs cut off, because this is a war between Israel and Palestinians. And Palestinians are the only victims in this equation.
Thousands and thousands. So you agree with thousands of people, women and children, being killed?
No, I don't agree with 1,500 being killed on October the 7th.
Neither do I.
But I do agree. Let me explain what I do agree with.
Can I put something
Let me explain to you.
Can I put something to you?
Let me just clarify my position. It might be helpful. Because I've had lots of pro-Palestinian guests on this show, as you may or may not be aware.
You've been very good on...
But I've tried to be very fair, but I've been consistent about my own opinion. I think after what Hamas did on October the 7th, it is utterly inconceivable that Hamas remain in power in Gaza. Inconceivable.
Support Hamas. I'm not a friend of Hamas. I don't agree.
You used to call them friends.
No, hang on.
We did.
Karen, let's get this clear.
We did say that you were friendly.
Piers, can you hang on a second? Let me just...
Is that not true?
Can I say something very clearly?
Yes.
To you, which I've said many times, and I said it on Andrew Marr 2 weeks ago. 10 years ago, I was in a private meeting in the House of Commons with a number of people who were representative of different Palestinian groups. It was an attempt to understand their views and to bring people together. For a short time, a person who was related to Hamas left the room. And I said, in a collegiate, a friendly and appropriate way, as you would at any meeting, where's our friend from Hamas gone?
Right.
That's all I said.
Yeah, this is just bullshit. Here's the actual clip.
I want to first of all say thank you everyone for being here tonight and say that tomorrow evening it will be my pleasure and my honour to host an event in Parliament where our friends from Hezbollah will be speaking. I'd also invited friends from Hamas to come and speak as well. Unfortunately, the Israelis would not allow them to travel here, so it's going to be only friends from Hezbollah. So far as I'm concerned, that is absolutely the right function of using parliamentary facilities to invite people from other parts of the world. So that we can promote that peace, that understanding and that dialogue. And the idea that an organisation that is dedicated towards the good of the Palestinian people and bringing about long-term peace and social justice and political justice in the whole region should be labelled as a terrorist organisation by the British government is really a big, big historical mistake. And I would invite the government to reconsider its position on this matter and start talking directly to Hamas and Hezbollah.
And that...
So you called Hamas friends?
No. Oh, come on.
Oh, come on.
Piers.
You just admitted it.
How many times have you sat in a meeting and called somebody a friend?
I wouldn't say my friends from the IRA. I wouldn't say my friend from ISIS. I wouldn't say my friend from Al Qaeda.
Look,
you said my friend from Hamas. No, you might have changed, Jeremy. You might have changed your mind.
No, Piers,
which you're perfectly entitled to do.
Piers,
and my understanding is you do now regret what you said.
You are obsessed with tittle-tattle of politics.
Now, whether it's Jeremy Corbyn, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, they're all the same. Every single one of these radical leftists loves to push what they want. But the moment someone holds up their own words to them, they run away, they claim victimhood, and they say you're obsessed with everything that they've done and said. You can't have it both ways. Either you say things in the public sphere and people are allowed to criticize you, and if they're evil things, they are definitely allowed to criticize you, or go away. But Jeremy Corbyn wants both. He wants to hide behind his victim shield while also calling for genocide.
Really?
Something that happens 10 years ago. Why don't you instead concentrate on this?
You think people supporting Hamas is tittle-tattle?
Let me finish. Give me a chance.
Really?
Give me a chance. Let me finish. How do you think people in Palestine feel under occupation? How do you think it's like
how they feel.
Growing up with a soldier outside your house? How do you feel? How would you feel?
Of course, you could make exactly the same arguments about every single civilian who was in southern Israel when Hamas attacked, but he's not doing that.
Well, can I answer?
Your land was being taken.
Can I answer?
Put in. How would you feel if your children were being bombed in a hospital?
Can I answer?
How would you feel if your children were kidnapped and taken to Gaza, Jeremy?
Yeah, please.
OK, I had a Palestinian doctor on here a few days ago who'd lost over 30 members of his family right? He grew up on the Jabili refugee camp.
Yeah.
His parents were displaced in 1948, and they ended up in a refugee camp where he then lost 3 of his daughters were killed in an Israeli strike on a home he had finally got for himself. He then emigrated and has now been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. He was in tears at this desk in that seat. So I don't need to be told. I've said that the way that Israel is able even today to turn the tap on of water and energy and fuel into Gaza is wrong.
Ignoring, of course, that Hamas controls every single one of these utilities, and the only reason Israel is able to turn it off is because they're still providing it.
Palestinians should have the same human rights as people in Israel.
Exactly.
I'm unequivocal about
Absolutely.
that. But I'm also unequivocal in my head that Hamas has to go. And so the question for you, Len, and for you, Jeremy, but the question is, if Israel doesn't do it like they're doing it, how do they get rid of Hamas?
I've just give you the answer.
A terror
before.
group.
No, Piers. I give you the answer before.
Yeah, and the answer before is for Jews to shut up and just let them be slaughtered.
I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
Do you condemn the Israeli government for the occupied settlements that are growing and have been growing for decades and are against international law? Do you condemn that?
Yes.
So this is, again, just a logical trick. It's just whataboutism. So rather than addressing what Hamas are doing and why all of their solutions regarding Hamas are just nonsense, they're asking Piers Morgan, well, do you condemn Israel? And here he is condemning Israel. But it doesn't matter whether he does or not because we're talking about Hamas. But they don't want to talk about Hamas because Hamas are an evil terrorist organization that will never agree to a two-state solution because what they want to do is kill all the Jews. Jeremy Corbyn and Len McCluskey know this. They just really don't want to talk about it.
Fine. Then the best way to get rid of any extremism that exists in nations and groups is to comply with international law and make certain that Palestine is given a viable... And I'll finish with this question.
Go on.
If we all believe in a two-state solution...
Again, we don't all believe in a two-state solution. Hamas, who control Gaza, does really not believe in a two-state solution.
Why doesn't our government recognise the state of Palestine? Why do they only recognise the state of Israel?
I think you can only have a two-state...
hypocrisy at its highest level.
You can only have a two-state solution, but in this particular part of this very long conflict, you have a situation where Hamas now represents an existential threat to Israel. And they've repeated it last week. Their spokesman from Hamas repeatedly said, when he was challenged, we want to do this again and again and again and again. Let me ask Jeremy a question.
Come on,
Look,
can we...
I want to come back to this thing about what do you do with Hamas? Do you keep them in power?
Israel's claiming...
Again, question about Hamas. Israel.
It is...
not from him.
Yeah, he agrees with the Israeli government.
No, you wouldn't answer. I said, would you keep Hamas in power? You wouldn't answer.
They wouldn't be in power.
Can you not speak for him? It's not a puppet show. It's not a puppet show, Len.
It's not a puppet show.
He's allowed to answer for himself.
Of course he is.
Well, let him answer.
The reality is...
Let him answer, Len. Don't talk for Jeremy Corbyn.
All you want to do is bully people.
Crying victim. These people who will stand in the street and scream intifada, resistance by any means necessary, and from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Anyone who criticizes them and dares to ask them questions on live TV, oh, they're just bullying.
Who am I bullying?
You're bullying constantly.
There's two of you.
OK.
Piers.
One's run a party in the country. One's run a major union. Are you really feeling bullied, Len McCluskey? Do me a favour.
I'm not.
Do me a bloody favour. Do me a bloody favour.
I'm not.
Let me come back to Jeremy Corbyn, if I may, without you speaking for him.
Can I put it this way?
Would you get rid of Hamas?
Can I say something?
You can answer my question.
No, can I say something?
Would you get rid of Hamas?
Listen, can I say something?
Yes or no?
Thank you. Can I say something? Thank you. Israel claiming it is conducting legitimate self-defense. Where is legitimate self-defense pre-ordering the bombing of a hospital knowing there are children in it?
And what does Jeremy Corbyn do here? He ignores all the important context that actually explains why these civilians are in danger, because all of that ends up with you having to criticise Hamas, which is something Jeremy Corbyn really doesn't want to do. So it's all Israel's fault. No responsibility lies with Hamas, who are responsible for their own people, apparently, and the fact that they force them to stay in hospitals and they use those same hospitals as their military headquarters. What is Israel supposed to do? We all agree that bombing a hospital is bad, but Jeremy Corbyn will never, ever answer the question, why is Israel bombing that hospital? He will never discuss the fact that Hamas uses hospitals, mosques, schools as headquarters. They fire rockets from them. They store weapons there. Why? Because they want civilian casualties. How can you ever defeat an enemy that wins regardless of who civilians are killed?
Where is legitimate self-defense?
You've heard their argument
bombing
about
a
that.
school?
They believe that Hamas, and this has been corroborated, by the way, by everyone from
10,000
Bill
people
Clinton.
have died.
Bill Clinton is on the record as saying that, this is years ago, he's on the record as saying that Hamas 5, 6, 7 years ago, in fact, you know what, let's listen to him say it himself. Here.
Hamas is really smart. When they decide to rocket Israel, they insinuate themselves in the hospitals, in the schools, in the highly populous areas. I killed myself to give the Palestinians a state. I had a deal they turned down that would have given them all of Gaza, all of Gaza, between 96 and 97% of the West Bank, compensating land in Israel.
So, two things then. We'll come to the second part in a moment. But he's crystal clear, Bill Clinton, in 2016. He was president of the United States for 2 terms, right? That Hamas were using hospitals, schools, mosques and others deliberately. And they don't care about Palestinian lives. They don't care about them. They knew when they did what they did on October the 7th, there was going to be a massive reaction by Israel. They knew thousands of innocent Palestinians would die. They don't care about their people. So my question for you, Jeremy, which you haven't answered, Jeremy,
there are
and I want you to answer.
Dead already.
I know.
Again, talking about 10,000 dead, Piers Morgan isn't even disputing this number.
How many more are there going to be before this is over? How many more wholly innocent Palestinian children are going to be killed because of Israeli military
Answer my
policy?
question.
How many more Jews have to be killed by Hamas until you start to care, Jeremy?
Answer my question.
A ceasefire means a ceasefire.
They are not
both sides.
Right.
So Jeremy Corbyn is lecturing us as if we don't speak English, but he's ignoring the fact that one side, Hamas, does not want a ceasefire. They have promised to keep attacking over and over and over again because they want to kill all the Jews. So what's the point in just yelling ceasefire when it's utterly meaningless?
Would you have said ceasefire, as this is the Israeli argument back at you, would you have said ceasefire to the Allied forces in World War II against the Nazis?
Jeremy Corbyn would have been on the Nazis' side.
And they went after cities like Dresden and killed tens of thousands of people in one night. Would you have said ceasefire, or would you have said you keep going until you finish and defeat the enemy? That's their argument, that they're at war with a group that wants to remove Israel completely and kill every Jew they can get their hands on. Now, I've asked you repeatedly,
Without
I want you to answer the question.
to rehearse everything in the Second World War, I think military targets should be industrial and military targets.
Right,
but not for Hamas, who only target civilian areas.
A lot of German
homes and hospitals.
As you know, a lot of German civilians died in the process of taking on the Nazis. So my question again, and just answer this question: would you keep Hamas in power?
It's not up to you.
What's your opinion?
No, hang on a minute.
You're expressing plenty of other opinions, aren't you?
Piers,
can you calm down a minute?
Can I ask you a question?
You know, I'm sorry.
Calm down a minute.
If you think Hamas should stay in power, say so.
Can I ask you a question?
Well, I wanted to answer the question.
Can I ask you?
No, he can answer it.
Can I ask you a question?
It's not a puppet show, Len.
Can I ask you?
Why won't you say Hamas should go?
You are a very strange form of interviewing.
It's the least strange form of interviewing. He's asking the same question over and over again. It's just Jeremy Corbyn doesn't want to answer it.
Am I?
Where you interrupt, shout and abuse your guest.
Well, you refuse to answer my question, and he keeps trying to answer it for you.
No, I'm going to ask you a question.
No, I'm not going to ask me a question, Len. It's not your show, it's mine. And I keep asking you the same question. Would you keep Hamas in power?
What I said was there has to be a ceasefire. A ceasefire has to be both sides. That ceasefire will then hopefully develop into a longer-term peace.
What, you think Israel can do?
Hang on a minute.
You think Israel can do peace with Hamas?
Israel has been talking to Hamas for 20 years.
You think they can do peace with them after October the 7th?
They've been listen, October the 7th was abominable and appalling. That we're agreed.
And you think Israel can do peace with people that did that?
I managed to get 2 sentences in between.
Because you won't answer my question.
Look. If you want to have a discussion, fine.
Answer my question.
If you want to just shout at me, that's your prerogative,
should Hamas,
your TV, your show.
Should Hamas stay in power?
Listen, what I said was a ceasefire means a ceasefire. It means both sides have to cease fire.
Yeah.
It means you then...
No, you said that. Should Hamas stay in power? It's actually
Are you done yet?
It's actually a critical question.
Are you done yet?
It's a critical question.
Are you done yet?
No, it's the question.
Are you done yet?
Should they stay in power?
Are you done yet?
This country says they're a terror group. Do you agree? And should they stay in power?
Listen, I do not approve, support, or welcome Hamas.
Are they a terror group?
Everybody knows what they are.
Are they a terror group?
Look, Piers,
can you say it?
Piers, can we have a discussion?
Can you say it?
Can we have a discussion?
Can you call them a terror group? Jeremy?
Can we have a discussion?
Can you call them a terror group?
Is it possible to have a rational discussion
Are you
with
prepared to call Hamas a terror group?
Is it possible to have a rational discussion with you? Is it possible? Come on, answer that question.
You can't, can you?
You answer it.
No, it's my show. You answer my question.
Well,
are Hamas a terror group?
Listen, can I...
Are they a terror group?
Piers, can I speak?
Answer the question.
Can I speak?
Are they a terror group?
Piers,
No, Len, no.
If you let me speak...
Are they a terror group?
If you'll let me speak,
Piers.
I'll say something.
Go on, then.
A ceasefire means both sides...
You said that. Are they a terror group?
Listen, I said that because
Are they a terror
that is part
group?
of the process.
Are they a terror
and
group?
Can we go...
Why can't you say it?
Piers, can we go through what ought to be happening?
Just answer my question.
Why do you think
Are Hamas
most
a terror
nations
group?
in the world are calling for a ceasefire?
Are
Why do you
Hamas
think
a
they
terror
are?
group?
Come on, answer that. Give it to me.
No, it's not your show.
You've got so many opinions.
Why
You
should
do
I
that
answer
all the
yours
time
when
and
you
every
won't
day.
answer mine?
This is the same Vivek Ramaswamy bullshit of just deflecting. You don't want to talk about one thing, so you put it all on the other person. Jeremy Corbyn is refusing to answer whether Hamas is a terrorist group. So instead, he's trying to flip it on Piers Morgan and force him to answer a question, when Piers Morgan has already answered a bunch of his questions. It's bullshit.
Why do you give out your opinions all day and every day?
Are Hamas,
and you don't like it
are
when somebody
Hamas a
pushes
terror,
it back on
are
you?
Hamas a terror group? Yes or no?
You won't like it when somebody
Yes or
pushes
no?
back on you. What I've said is...
I've asked you two questions. Should Hamas stay in power and are they a terror group? You're refusing to answer either of them. That is very telling. And you wonder,
It's not very telling
and you
at
wonder
all. It's
why
not-
people think you had a problem
It's not
with
very
Jewish
telling
people.
at all.
Right?
What is very
you wonder.
telling is your inability to keep quiet for 30 seconds to allow anybody to answer a question.
On my show, I ask people questions.
You
and
shout at people. That's what
Normally,
you do.
they answer them.
Honestly, Jeremy Corbyn is just unhinged at this point.
You shout at people.
No, only when they won't answer the question.
You shout at people all the
You've
time.
deliberately
I've been watching you for a long time.
deliberately not answered my question.
Piers, I've explained to you how to get rid of Hamas.
Yeah, don't you remember that little tidbit of wisdom? Basically, the Jews should just let themselves be slaughtered, and then Hamas won't need to exist anymore.
Are they a terror group, Len?
Of course, the
Thank
terror...
you. Why can't you say that?
Hang on.
You've answered it. And should they stay in power, Len?
But do you...
Should they stay in power?
No, they won't be in power.
No, do you believe they should?
They won't be in...
But do you believe they should?
They won't be in
Do you
power.
believe they should?
They won't... I don't believe...
Okay, so
I
you've answered my questions.
I believe...
It's
hang
not
on.
that difficult to
No,
say Hamas should
the
go and they're a
reality-
terror group.
the
Why
rea-
can't you,
Why
Jeremy
can't you
Corbyn, answer the
also
questions?
ask something about the
Piers.
behaviour of the Israeli army and the Israeli government? Why can't you say that?
Piers Morgan has already condemned a lot of Israel's actions. He's been openly critical about a lot of things Israel are doing. Jeremy Corbyn has not been critical once of Hamas in this entire interview. Kind of important.
Why can't you have a discussion about how a ceasefire would come about? Why can't you have a discussion about a process for the future?
Because you know why, Jeremy?
Which brings
You know why, Jeremy?
Which
When
brings
I-
about a peace for everybody in the
Because
region.
when I
And it does
repeatedly-
not mean that the people of Gaza
Because when I repeatedly-
all support Hamas.
When
It
I
does not mean that,
repeatedly
and you know
ask
that.
you, are Hamas a terror organisation and should they stay in power? And you are simply incapable of saying
I'm not.
that they're a terror group and they shouldn't stay
The
in
most
power.
important
People will
thing-
draw their own conclusions.
The most
They'll draw
important
their own
thing-
conclusions.
How do
You
you
drew your
stop?
conclusions before
How-
you came
Anyway,
here.
let me
do you
conclude with this.
stop?
You've done a book on poetry. It's
we
called,
gave you a copy of.
Poetry for the Many. I appreciate it. Thank you very
you.
much. Wonderful poetry from wonderful people, encouraging the working classes to embrace and enjoy culture, poetry and music for the many. I love poetry. We can agree on that.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
And of course, it's in a little red book, which is just too perfect.